Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Needed Shah. And it promises to be an interesting day of trade simply because there are a bunch of sectors which will be undecided. And therefore, trading could be slightly iffy in some of those. But first, let's get to the world markets. Remember, US markets were shut. But if you just look at what Asia Pacific is doing currently, it's a bit of a mixed bag. So you have some indices in the red, a couple of indices in the green. And there's this wonderful chart on the Bloomberg terminal which shows that how in the last couple of periods, Asia Pacific has actually done really well compared to the developed markets. This is Asia versus US, right? So the Asian benchmark index returns versus the S&P 500, and as you can see, that the last month, particularly the month of May, I think it was much better than what the US markets did. Frankly, if you look at just compare the Nifty and the Nifty Bank versus the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq or the Dow, you will see that we have been rank outperformers. Now, if you were already an investor, that's great news. If you wanted to make a fresh investment, you got to ask yourself, what is the risk reward currently? The trend is good, so therefore make the trend your friend and don't bet against it. But yeah, I mean, you got to ask us, just be careful about the risk reward situation when you're going out and placing fresh bets for yourself. Now, what is the SGX Nifty telling us? Let's just quickly get that also on the screen before we talk about some other factors and what are the key things to monitor in the session today. About 0.25%, 43 odd points higher. And like I was saying, that okay, for the last 200, 250 points, I've been thinking that the risk reward is not in favor of leverage longs. And obviously I've been proven wrong, because even if you took leverage longs, you've gotten rewarded. I still think that the risk is high, and therefore it's better to do cash longs as opposed to leverage longs. But be that as it may, the trend is going very strong, and therefore you don't bet against the trend. That's the simple rule. Now, it's an important day today for more reasons than one. Actually, just before we get to that, can we get the June performance of the Nifty? And you know, the sell in May and go away theory did not work. Almost everybody, I mean, that's a common old age adage which says that you got to sell in May and go away. That obviously didn't work for the Indian markets. And if you look at June, the last 5 years, viewers, look at the performance. Without exception, we've had a positive month in the month of June. Yes, 2015 was a month in the red, was a month of red, but 2014 was also green. But I've just brought the last 5 years to tell you that June typically has actually done pretty well. Could this repeat? Frankly, this is no relevance, because this may well change and we may have a 5% correction also, who knows. But it just shows that how history has been on the side of you betting on the positive in the month of June. So let's wait and watch. June is that central column, as you can see on your phones or on your laptops, as the case may be. Now, what did the markets do in trade yesterday? Positive and extremely strong buoyancy in the second half of trade, led by Reliance, obviously, but some of the others participating. The broader end of the spectrum too, the market breadth was positive. This is the MOE function on the Bloomberg terminal. And just look at the gains. Now, obviously, PNB Housing Finance had reasons for that. It's for itself, the Carlyle Group investment and all of that, which is why it was up 20%. But a lot of others, solar up 10% after the con call, after they said that 30% growth. So therefore, and this was done last week, so the market paid cognizance to positive commentary in the session yesterday. The AMC companies were extremely active. Companies like Aegis, IRB, and some of the others reacted to the numbers. So all in all, it was a pretty strong show. Just that the companies which didn't do well also got punished. Mahindra & Mahindra, GMM Pfaudler, all of them were a case in point. Fine Organics has come back from 3,100 to 2,900. So all of these are facing some issues, but otherwise the market breadth, the point that I was trying to make was that the market breadth was in favor of the advances yesterday. Now that's the trade setup, right? That you obviously bet on that if the markets have to move higher, you bet on Reliance Industries, you bet on banks, obviously because banks have to participate, maybe to an extent ITC results, the results of which are today. Those are the ones that could help the index stay higher. I think the support for the Nifty is 15,250 to 15,400 based on my conversations with certain technical analysts, and they say that this is uncharted territory. So every 100-point upside is a milestone in a eventual trend towards 16,000. But this is going really strong, so good going there. And to my mind, I think the easy money making is done. Throw a dart and pick up the stock. I think that is done. The incremental moves will come with announcements, with news developments, the way they happened yesterday. I doubt that this is now a market which was at about 15,000, wherein you pick a mid-cap stock and it would be up 15% or 10% or 5% the next day. I think that phase is probably behind us. So hard work ahead. Bunch of numbers today. ITC comes out with numbers much anticipated, and the stock has actually gained about 10% or thereabouts in the month of May alone. Cigarette volumes expected about 8%. If FMCG volumes come about 20%, viewers, that's a big positive. So you got to be mindful of that ITC has had a rally, but if the volume growth numbers are this, the expectation is 15%. If they do 20, that's great. Cigarette volumes expected at 8%. If they do slightly better than that, that's great. So just keep that at the back of your mind. Other earnings include Gujarat Gas, Radico Khaitan, and Balrampur Chini. Sugar has had such a good rally despite the pause in the last few days that I think it's imperative for Balrampur to post good numbers and good commentary, else the stock could get punished. So keep this at the back of your mind. What are the stocks though that I'm watching out for in the session today, which will react at 9:15? I think couple of results. So I'll start off with those, right? Should we start with the results? Let's start with Jamna Auto maybe, because that was a good set of numbers. Revenues up 35%. EBITDA margin down, but net profit up massively. So very strong revenue and bottom line numbers, even if the margin control missed a bit. Let's wait and watch how this stock reacts today. There are obviously one-offs because of which, despite the revenue growth number being up 35%, the net profit growth is up 58%, while the EBITDA margins have not expanded. But net reported numbers look solid. Similarly for Narayan Hrudayalaya, actually on that, for that company, everything is done well. Revenues up 12%, EBITDA margin expand about 300 basis points on a quarter-on-quarter basis. Mind you, I'm not doing YOY either for Jamna or for Narayana. This is quarter-on-quarter, and then they've done so well. Net profit at 68 crores versus 40 crores, which is a jump of about 67%. So obviously good numbers. Let's wait and watch how this one reacts in the session. My guess is that both of these could have pretty decent reactions. I'll watch out for defense stocks. MOD is notified the second negative list of 108 items. It contains helicopters, next generation corvettes, tank engines, etc. But essentially, remember viewers, we were talking about this, that how defense stocks have come into focus and people are piling onto them. Now you got to be careful, because there are some maybe 8 or 10 companies or 12 companies out there, and you might end up buying the one which is a lemon and not necessarily the winner. So you got to be very careful about what you buy in defense. Just that the tailwind is with this stock. Remember, there's one good way to invest, right? You look at the sectoral tailwind and ask if this sector has tailwinds. And if it does, then you pick up a good winner there, and more likely than not, you will do well. So that's the key. Defense seems to be that space. At the opposite end, though, are tire companies. Now, there may not be a crash or anything, but I foresee a pickle or two here, right? Prices of all key raw materials, rubber, carbon black, crude prices on the rise, all of these actually point towards margin pressures for these companies, right? And if auto sales are not that buoyant, obviously the replacement demand is there, but otherwise the tire demand is a bit soft. So that is one key thing that somehow worries me about the tire space. And mind you, not all stocks have done well or badly, but I mean, a JK Tire YTD is up about 70%. I'm not advocating any trade here. I'm just telling you to be careful if you're investing in tire companies. There is also a part though. The tire companies are increasing prices. I think 3 or 4 days, if I'm not wrong, Apollo Tires, 3 or 4 days back, Apollo Tires increased prices by some 4% or 5% to pass on the raw material cost uptake. Now, whether all of this can happen or whether there could be some pressures, that is part one. And part two is, of course, the commentary from the auto companies on the reopening. Because everybody knows that today, for example, when the auto sales numbers come out, they won't be that great. That's discounted, right? So it doesn't matter. But keep in mind that it could be interesting times for the tire companies. I will also watch out for IRB Infra. Yesterday, HDFC Mutual Fund bought about 0.7% stake. All of it was sold by this company. But HDFC Mutual Fund has bought about 24.81 lakh shares at 111. The stock was very active yesterday, as we saw just a minute back. So this is one more name I'll watch out for. Keep in mind, CLSA has come out with a note on IRB. They are maintaining an buy rating with a target price of 170 rupees per share. And you know, there's a table that we have of the key movers and shakers today. And IRB Infra yesterday rather. And IRB Infra does feature in that list, 6.5% up, 53% mark for delivery. Let's keep with that. And that's the reason, I mean, that's the key thing, 53% mark for delivery, which means I mean, obviously the HDFC mutual fund buying contributing to that, but that's a big mover with high delivery percentages. Some of the others too, PNB Housing, Aegis, ABB India, fabulous delivery percentages, as you can see on your right, with the price gains that they have shown in trade yesterday. So could be interesting moves. Excuse me. So these are a few things that I watch out for. I will watch out for Aurobindo Pharma today. Brokerages seem to be pretty bullish on that. So that's one more stock to watch out for. And lastly, something that I missed just at the start of our trading thing. I don't know if my producer can bring it up or no, but things to watch out today. There are two key things, two key elements. One is the OPEC plus meet on production, and this will be very, very important. I would reckon that they would say that they'll do staggered increases in supplies because US and EU are opening up. Is that enough to counter the surge that we're seeing in crude prices? Maybe not. And therefore, you got to try and also think about this, that if indeed crude may move up, then would the crude beneficiaries do well? That's the question you got to ask. And as I said, we'll also watch out for the auto sales data today. But I think the OPEC plus meet is very, very important. Someday in the next few days, we'll try and talk to either Van Nahari or Peter Maguire about this. Maybe tomorrow, because the OPEC meeting would be done. It'd be great to get them to try and give their perspective on crude as well, because that will help us figure out whether to trade some of the crude beneficiaries or not. But net in today's session, based on brokerage calls, Glenmark and Aurobindo Pharma and State Bank of India, of course, CLS has said that they believe there's a 50% upside possible in SBI. So that is one. I'll watch out for IRB Infra, and I'll watch out for Jamna Auto and Narayan Hridayalaya because of the results that they've come out with. And in general, Reliance, banks, ITC, do watch out for these three. ITC numbers come today. Extremely important day. Let's wait and watch what they deliver. Thanks so much, viewers, for tuning into the trade setup today. Have a safe day ahead. Please stay masked up if you're stepping out. We are unlocking from today. So if you're stepping out, please mask up and have a good week ahead.